Hello, I'm Michelle Powers, and you are watching a special edition of Current News. Another week in a changed world, but we are celebrating one story of survival. A little boy turned big trooper. He's home after battling that mysterious illness. This while New York's nursing homes are still bearing the brunt of the coronavirus. The governor issuing new mandates, but are they too little, too late? Plus, the Pope has hit millions of views on his live streams, but the Vatican says that is all coming to an end, just as in-person services begin. And vaccinations, we may have them soon, but not too fast. What a top U.S. Archbishop says Catholics need to demand. It's a matter of life and death. That's coming up on Current News, Special Edition.
A big welcome home for a little boy, Jayden Hardowar, beating the odds of a mysterious illness. Shocked back to life and hospitalized for days.
Everything worked out for him. We were there, right time, right place, doing the right thing.
Now his family and those who saved him are celebrating life.
Jayden has a long road to recovery. The boy is still weak and didn't say a word as he was welcomed home. Doctors don't know much about the pediatric disease except that they believe it is related to COVID-19. But Current News' Emily Druby says his parents consider it a win just to have their fighter home.
Cheers of joy for Jayden Hardowar as he left the hospital on Tuesday. A miracle. Because this was him just a week before. In an instant, the 8-year-old boy went from healthy and vibrant to this.
He wasn't breathing anymore.
Jayden was sick, suffering from a mysterious illness that targets kids. No one knows for sure, but it's probably linked to COVID-19. In Jayden's case, his life was on the line.
Me and my older son rushed into the room and checked for a pulse. There was no pulse.
In that moment, the boy's father, ROUP, and brother TYRON were terrified, but TYRON knew what to do.
I thought he was dead, to be honest, and I don't want him to die, so I had to save him.
A Boy Scout with Troop 177 out of Holy Child Jesus Church in Richmond Hill, he sprung into action, performing CPR on his brother, something he learned while earning a first aid merit badge.
Scout motto is to be prepared, and I was prepared for life.
Knowledge that likely saved Jayden's life.
Without the CPR, he would have had some sort of brain damage, which the doctors found out there was none of that right now.
Help arrived quickly. Firefighter Tom Gonzalez shocked Jayden's heart back into rhythm.
After all the cardiac arrests we've been to the past few months, it's a great thing to see, to be able to help this kid out.
And he was rushed to the hospital, where Jayden spent 2 weeks fighting for his life. New York is investigating 102 cases of this dangerous pediatric disease, which causes extreme inflammation in important organs. So far, 3 deaths in the state have been linked to it. Almost 50% of the kids hospitalized from it are still there. But on Tuesday, Jayden was released and brought home. Emily Druby, Current News.
New York State is hoping for more stories of survival, particularly in its nursing homes. That's why Governor Andrew Cuomo has issued a new mandate. Patients in New York's hospitals must now test negative for COVID-19 before they can be discharged to nursing homes. It's an about-face of a policy that forced 6 seniors into facilities housing the most vulnerable. But are these potentially life-saving actions coming too late? Current News' Jessica Easthope has that story.
More than 5,200 nursing home residents across New York State have died from coronavirus. Bianca Carrazzo's 72-year-old father was one of them.
I had no idea that they were closing their doors to visitors but opening their doors to residents that were potentially, I had no idea.
She never got to say goodbye. In March, the state health department began limiting visitations, but requiring nursing homes to accept and readmit recovering patients, even if they were still positive. That's when Bianca thinks her father got sick in his Nassau County facility.
No, you don't want to walk a virus into a nursing home. that could kill the person you're going to visit.
A problematic mandate Governor Cuomo partially reversed over the weekend. Now patients must test negative before they can be discharged to nursing homes, and all staff will be tested twice a week or lose their license. But Bianca says this is too little, too late.
On day 71 to say that there's so much damage that's been done, and I don't know that anything could reverse that.
She's not alone in her criticism. New York State Senate Republicans have called for an independent investigation into nursing home deaths. According to the latest figures from the Department of Health, 12% of the state's COVID-19 deaths have been nursing home residents. The virus has already likely killed more than 5% of all New York nursing home residents.
People in nursing homes and seniors, this is where this virus feeds. It's where this virus started.
The governor directed the Department of Health and the Attorney General's office in late April to begin investigating nursing homes for compliance with state directives. But many industry advocates have argued that those directives are constantly changing, leaving many families without closure.
I'll never know if he didn't get the care that he should have because everyone was overextended. I'll never know what really happened.
Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Throughout this crisis, church doors have remained closed in the Diocese of Brooklyn. But despite the hardships, the faith there seems to be growing every day. Tens of thousands are watching live-streamed TV masses, setting the stage for the day the doors finally open wide again. Currents News' Emily Druby asked the big question: with this new alternative, will people ever come back to the pews?
Live-streamed Mass is a great solace for many as churches were shuttered to stop the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
We're getting thousands of hits, and they're coming from all over the parish, but also from around the country and around the world.
We spoke with Auxiliary Bishop James MASSA, who says the tool has been a great way for people to connect with their parish and their faith during the pandemic.
But it is important for us to be together in worship, and if technology can help us to do that, then it is truly a gift from God.
But now the world is slowly starting to reopen, and that includes churches. In Italy, the liturgy will resume on May 18th, while the Brooklyn Diocese has already launched a task force to prepare for their eventual opening. But the question remains, when churches do reopen, will people come back to the pews or will they stream services from home? Monsignor Michael CURRAN, a theology professor at St. Joseph's Seminary, says of course they will.
It's been a tremendous blessing to have that available. We want to avoid that idea where people would say, well, I can watch Mass with a cup of coffee in my living room rather than actually go and be present. But I don't see that happening. I think people are hungry to get back to normality.
And they are. Parishioners all over the diocese are desperate to get back into their churches. And while watching from home technically doesn't fulfill the Catholic obligation, it's been successfully used in the Brooklyn Diocese and has been a great way for churches to connect with their parishioners.
Only say the word and my soul shall be healed.
Holy Name of Jesus Parish is live streaming, but they've taken it a step further, placing the Blessed Sacrament inside a window, a place for parishioners to feel closer to the church while remaining socially distant.
We've gotten positive feedback, and we'll plan to keep it there for the duration of until the church is open.
Emily Druby, Currents News.
Please remember, Net TV, New York's Catholic station, is now broadcasting live TV masses in 8 languages. The liturgies are on air Sunday and throughout the week. The full schedule is listed at nettv.ny. But the Vatican will soon stop live streaming Pope Francis's daily masses. The Holy See says the last live mass will be this coming Monday when Francis celebrates the 100th birthday of Pope St. John Paul II. The streams will stop for a good reason, though, because public masses are resuming in Italy. That being said, the Holy Father saw record numbers while live streaming. During Holy Week and Easter, there were more than 14 million page views, compared with that 3.5 million last year. The Vatican live streamed all the major events on its YouTube channel in 6 languages. Still to come on this special edition of Currents News, the world needs a cure, but does it come at a cost? New medicines and vaccinations. Current News sits down with a top archbishop who says we have to be careful just what we wish for. It's a pro-life matter and a crisis of conscience. And America's top infectious disease expert had a message for Catholic high school students. What Fauci had to say goes beyond the current crisis. Plus a living rosary. One parish had a plan that came together one bead at a time. As researchers try to find a COVID-19 vaccine, an ethical issue for Catholics has surfaced. Some research involves the use of cell lines from aborted fetuses. Archbishop Joseph Naumann, the leader of the Committee on Pro-Life Activities for the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, spoke with Christine Persichetti. She asked him his opinion on the matter. Here's Archbishop Naumann.
Obviously, all of us want a vaccine, and we want one as soon as possible. But we also want a vaccine that's developed ethically. And unfortunately, there are some cell lines that are being used in some of the vaccines that are being developed that were recovered from aborted fetuses. Now, there are other cell lines that can be used. It's not necessary for the pharmaceutical companies to use the cell lines from aborted fetuses. So our appeal to the FDA is to, yes, get us a vaccine as quickly as possible, but also get us one that is not ethically compromised.
All right, well, everyone, as you said, wants to protect themselves from this virus and wants a vaccine. Well, what if a vaccine is discovered using this method? What advice would you give to Catholics?
Well, again, I think now's the moment while it's being developed that we should be advocating and for an ethically developed one. If, we receive a vaccine, if the vaccine is developed and it does use an aborted fetus cell line, where there is precedent where if there aren't other vaccines available and it is a threat to public health, where Catholics could use this, but as they use it, they must register a protest and again insist that an ethically developed vaccine. I think the problem is that this is used by some who promote abortion to say, well, look, we need abortion so that we can have these vaccines, and it's not true.
Right.
We can develop these vaccines without using these cell lines from aborted babies.
And as you know, abortion centers remain open for business during the crisis while other medical procedures are being postponed. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's very ironic, and it's not just that they're remaining open, but they're really exploiting the fears, both the health fears, but also the economic fears that some women are under a great amount of pressure at this time. So I'm grateful that our crisis pregnancy centers continue to serve at this time, and we encourage anyone who's pregnant and experiencing difficulties and anxieties to reach out to one of our crisis pregnancy centers. There's a whole community that's ready to help you and to stand by you with whatever problems or challenges you face.
Sure. And the head of Planned Parenthood says this pandemic may have what she's calling a silver lining: increased access to chemical abortions provided through prescriptions. What do you think of that?
It's not a solution. It's still killing the child, and it's not safe for women either.
That was Archbishop Joseph Naumann, the leader of the USCCB's Pro-Life Committee. America's top doctor during this crisis sent a message to the graduating classes of Jesuit high schools across the country. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is an alumnus of Regis High School in Manhattan, asked students to keep moving forward despite these challenging times.
Please hang in there. We need you to be smart, strong, and resilient.
After Regis, Dr. Fauci went on to graduate from a Jesuit college, the College of the Holy Cross in Massachusetts. This pandemic has made life difficult for many, both physically and spiritually. One group of parishioners from Queens realized they missed the solace that came with praying the rosary together. So they decided to do something about it, one bead at a time. Current News' Emily Drewby has the story of a living, breathing, virtual rosary.
The world is shuttered in the face of the pandemic, but people's faith is not faltering. And Our Lady Queen of Martyrs Church in Forest Hills, Queens is proving that by keeping a wonderful tradition alive with a new twist. Twice a year, the church holds a living rosary to honor the Blessed Virgin Mary with parishioners and clergy.
Then we would go outside the front of the church and line up like a rosary bead. And each person would say a Hail Mary or an Our Father.
But this year, with social distancing restrictions still in place, it wasn't possible.
The reason why we do it is one, to get people to participate in their faith, and two, to be an example for other people.
And since they strive to be a strong example of faith, Father Antonin KOCUREK and Dennis Portelli tell us they needed to come up with a Plan B option, so they did this.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee.
Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
A virtual living rosary with 50 parishioners and clergy, happening in Mary's month of May. Significant because it's the month Pope Francis asked Catholics to make a special effort to pray the rosary, a way to unite with believers around the world, asking for Mary's intercession in stopping the pandemic. With this new video, the long-standing church tradition has taken on a new role.
We are connected and we can see each other and we can feel that in the prayers that we are somehow together like God's family.
They were able to get reconnected with their church and reconnected with something that they're familiar with.
Emily Drewby, Current News.
Now to an update on what's happening underground. A week ago, the subways shut down overnight to clean the system and move out the homeless. Current News' Jessica Easthope has an exclusive interview with a train conductor telling us exactly what's been accomplished and what may never be if New York City doesn't change.
Jennifer Montano rides the subway every week since the pandemic began. She needs to get to her prenatal appointments.
Today on the Q train, as soon as I walked on, there were literally 4 people laying down sleeping.
Jennifer only has to see this once a week. MTA train operator Yen Hicks sees it every day.
Now it's like every train, every trip, every day.
Last week, city and state leaders made the historic decision to close the subways overnight. The MTA has been disinfecting all trains. Yen, who's been with the MTA for 14 years and operates N and J trains, says he's seen a big improvement in this area.
I'm very proud of the MTA and the management for starting to clean up the trains.
And so have riders.
On the Q today and the R have looked a little bit cleaner.
Subway ride was nice. It was clean.
But Yan says the homeless who have been forced off the trains during the nightly cleanings come back.
Around 5 a.m. that people are all lined up to get back on the train that were kicked off at 1 a.m.
Then he says the conditions within the subway return to unacceptable and unsanitary.
It's disgusting when you're a train operator and you're pulling into a station, you see a pile of defecation here and a pile of defecation there.
Yan says forcing people off is a small fix to a much deeper problem that's plagued New York City for decades.
The city really has to step in and help the people out. People should be living on the trains.
Mayor Bill de Blasio's Thrive NYC has an immense budget to address mental illness in New York City. Critics say the initiative has failed.
We now have found new ways to get street homeless people off the street.
Yan says the people who call the subway home are lacking resources and options and are not getting the help they desperately need.
Right now, it's still a lot of homeless people, people that are mentally ill, people who think they live on the trains. It's very difficult to see this.
The subway will be closed overnight for the foreseeable future. Yan says he's hoping he and his fellow train operators are approached by city and state leaders to help come up with a more permanent solution to homelessness on the subways. In Prospect Heights, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, coronavirus had him so out of breath he could hardly speak, but then he started singing. The story of one patient and his very last song, perhaps dedicated to God and country. Plus a sign of hope that seemingly washed up on the shores of New York City. An 84-year-old man, last words to his family left them in awe. Dying of coronavirus, he could not speak. But that didn't stop Tom McDermott, who had once wanted to be a priest, from communicating a final message to his loved ones. Adam Badney has the story from Massachusetts.
I don't know, but something happened.
Tom McDermott was a pretty amazing guy. He survived polio, nearly became a priest, even worked on nuclear submarines. But recently, the 84-year-old Alzheimer's patient contracted COVID-19. His family said their final goodbyes.
We weren't expecting that there was any he was on comfort measures, and there was no expectation that he was communicating.
Tom's lungs were overwhelmed by the virus, so much so that his family says he never spoke again. Instead, he sang.
From mountains to the prairie, to the ocean.
We just all ran in and was like, what? It's not something that's normal.
That's the part where we were all amazed about that.
The family was watching a mass dedicated to the McDermotts when the call came in from the hospital. His last words were carrying a tune.
Minutes after the mass ended, the phone rang from South Shore Hospital, and the nurses were on the phone saying, "You have to hear this. This is unbelievable." And in that condition, you barely have the energy to nod. I don't know where the memory to sing or the energy to sing the song came from.
Tom served in the Marines during the Korean War and was a devout Catholic, so the timing of it all certainly makes them wonder.
I don't think that was something that happened by chance.
When I think about his service and why that song, I don't know. So we had deep faith, and if there was anybody ready, and at peace, it was him. So.
God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America.
That story reported by Adam Badney. Tom was laid to rest at St. Patrick's Cemetery in Massachusetts. His family will celebrate his life once churches reopen again. And finally, we've mentioned that if you send us your photos or videos, you might see them on Current News. Well, that's exactly what Joanne Oken did. She, along with her husband and daughter, came upon these painted seashells laid out in the shape of a cross and a heart. They were walking along the beach in the Neponset neighborhood of the Rockaways. Thank you for sending us this special sign of hope from a beach in Queens. Please send us your videos or photos just like Joanne and her family did, and you may see them right here on Current News. Send your submissions to netny.tv/sendus, and as always, stay tuned. And that is this edition of Current News. I'm Michelle Powers. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Be sure to join Christine Persichetti every weeknight at 7. Hope to see you again next time.